Good morning. Today is Thursday, September 26, 2024. I heard this many years ago from Rabbi Saul Berman. It's such an important insight. Let's say you have a guest who's coming to visit you. And you have great anticipation and great excitement about this guest. You haven't seen them in a long time. You're only going to have a few hours together. You have so much to discuss, to catch up on. You're really looking forward to this. The guest comes in, and you say to your guest, please make yourself comfortable. I'm just going to go into the kitchen to make dinner for tomorrow night. And when I finish, I'll be back. So, I think your guest would be very surprised. I came so that we could be together, so that we could spend time together. You tell me as soon as I arrive, you're going to spend most of the time by yourself in the kitchen, making dinner for a meal after I'm even gone? I mean, if making that meal is so important, why didn't you do it before I came? So that we will be able to have all this time to ourselves. Why use the time that we have together to do something for another day? This is the underpinning of a rule in Jewish law, a prohibition of hachana, of preparing on Yom Tov for any other day. So, for example, on a day of Yom Tov, there are certain things I'm allowed to do for that day. For example, I can cook for that day under certain circumstances. But I'm not allowed to cook for the next day. I'm not allowed to cook for the next day if it's Yom Tov. I'm not allowed to cook for the next day if it's Shabbos. And especially, I'm not allowed to cook for the next day if it's a weekday. Because we should appreciate each holy day for itself. We have the opportunity to engage and experience this holy day, this day, for a limited number of hours. We don't want to use this day to prepare for some other day. We want to appreciate it for itself. And therefore it is prohibited on one day to prepare on Yom Tov, to prepare, and similarly on Shabbos, prohibited to do anything that is preparing for afterwards. One of the ways in which we show respect for Yom Tov, to appreciate its unique character, is to refrain from using that day to prepare for another day. And therefore, as I mentioned, on the first day of Yom Tov, and this year it happens 3 times, Rosh Hashanah, and the first Yom Tov of Sukkos, and the second Yom Tov of Sukkos. 3 weekends where Yom Tov is Thursday and Friday, and it goes immediately into Shabbos. So on the first day of Yom Tov, we're not allowed to do anything that prepares specifically for the second day. For example, of course, you understand, the second day of Yom Tov starts at night. So during the day of the first day, I'm not allowed to do any cooking for that night. Similarly, not only cooking, but other kinds of actions, like carrying something that I don't need today, I only need it tomorrow. However, when our sages legislated this prohibition, they realized that if Yom Tov occurs on Thursday and Friday, like it does 3 times over this high holiday season, there would be great difficulty preparing for Shabbos 3 separate times in the next few weeks. Because it would be prohibited to prepare food on Friday, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, the second day of Sukkos, or Simchas Torah, because that would be using Yom Tov to prepare for another day. And it would be impractical to put food in the oven on Wednesday afternoon before the start of Yom Tov so that it could be eaten hot on Shabbos. And therefore, In this situation, the only viable alternative would be to eat cold, pre-prepared foods on this Shabbos 3 times. And that's a situation that would certainly have an adverse effect on the quality of our Shabbos cuisine. And on Shabbos, we're supposed to have Oneg Shabbos, to have delicious Shabbos meals that includes hot foods. So the rabbis decided to enact a provision to cover this situation. They reasoned it is only prohibited to begin preparing on this Friday for Shabbos, meaning, let's say, the second day of Rosh Hashanah for Shabbos, because you're preparing on Friday for the next day. But if you've already begun the preparations before Yom Tov for that Shabbos meal, then you can complete them on the day of Yom Tov that falls on Friday, in order to be eaten the next day on Shabbos. And the beginning of this preparation is called Eruv Tavshilin, the joining of cooking, or the connecting of the cooking that's done on Wednesday before Yom Tov starts, and is then finished on Friday, which is the second day of Yom Tov, second day of Rosh Hashanah, in order to prepare foods for Shabbos fresh. Now, an Eruv Tavshilin is made as follows. On the day before Yom Tov, so it's Wednesday, and it's going to be, again, 3 times in the next few weeks, we take a cooked food, for example, a hard-boiled egg, and we boil it specifically on that day, Wednesday, for this purpose. And we take a baked food, let's say matzah, 1 matzah. And we take these 2 foods, 1 whole matzah, 1 hard-boiled egg, we put them on a plate. Now, the reason that we suggest these 2 foods is because they're easily available and they won't spoil between Wednesday and Shabbos. If you need to substitute other foods, you should contact your rabbi to see about substituting other foods. And then, when we take these 2 foods and place them on this plate, we have to verbally announce our intention while we're holding the plate that this on Wednesday should be the beginning of our preparation for the coming Shabbos, and we are now going to be allowed on Friday to do any activity normally permitted on Yom Tov, which is needed as additional preparation for Shabbos. In other words, we're allowed to cook on Friday for Shabbos the same way we would cook on Friday for Friday, and we're required to say this out loud. Now, the text, and there's also a bracha, a blessing to say, because this is a mitzvah. It's in every siddur. You can find it in every siddur, every prayer book, under Eruv Tavshilin. And so we hold the plate, we make the announcement, we say the bracha. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. We take the plate, we make the bracha first, then we make this announcement. And now, before Yom Tov has started, we have completely prepared 1 Shabbos meal. And we should put this meal in a safe place, maybe on top of the refrigerator, maybe inside the refrigerator. And we should keep it and use it as one of the meals or part of the meals on Shabbos. So this is how we began the preparations for this coming Shabbos. And then we're allowed on Friday to continue the preparations of to cook whatever we need to do to continue our preparations for Shabbos. Now, I just want to specify that this only allows preparation on Friday for Shabbos, not on Thursday. And even if an Eruv Tavshilin is made, we may still not use Friday to prepare anything for after Shabbos, because that's still prohibited. If we have made an Eruv Tavshilin, it doesn't only allow us to cook on Friday for Shabbos, it allows us to do other things that are permitted to do on Yom Tov, but would be prohibited to do if they're being done in preparation for Shabbos, with an Eruv Tavshilin, it becomes permitted. For example, making the beds. Making the beds after you finish sleeping in them is a preparation for the next night, the next time you're going to go to sleep. Well, that's going to be Shabbos. So therefore, preferably on Yom Tov, during the day, you would not make the beds because that is preparing for after Yom Tov. But if you have an Eruv Tavshilin, that's permitted. And there are other types of things that are permitted on Yom Tov, prohibited if they're being done for the next day, but with an Eruv Tavshilin are permitted on Friday for Shabbos. It is a mitzvah for every household to make an Eruv Tavshilin, to be able to enjoy freshly prepared meals on that Shabbos. Only one member of the household has to do so, and that can be done by either spouse, and that covers the entire household. And the Eruv Tavshilin must be made before Yom Tov begins on Wednesday evening. And because of this, we are allowed on Friday evening, before sunset, to light Shabbos candles from an existing flame at the normal time. Because without an Eruv Tavshilin, we would not be able to do that. Friday afternoon, lighting candles for Shabbos would be preparing for one day to the next. But since I have an Eruv Tavshilin, I'm allowed to light candles from an existing flame on Friday afternoon as the Shabbos candles at the normal Shabbos candle lighting time. The practice of Eruv Tavshilin was instituted in order to ensure the dignity and respect we must have for each one of our holy days, to appreciate each one for itself. The first day Rosh Hashanah is unique, and the second day Rosh Hashanah is unique, and the first day of Sukkot is unique, and the second day of Sukkot is unique, etc., etc. Each day must be savored and enjoyed for its own sake, and not used to prepare for some other time, unless we are making use of the legislation of Eruv Tavshilin. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.